Hello, everybody. We are up to lesson 9 of Unit 5. No new lesson notes today. We're continuing what we started talking about in lesson 8 with our vertical and horizontal stretches and squashes. So let's go right into the examples. Okay. So function K is a transformation of function P due to a scale factor. Scale factor is another word for a stretch or a squash. Write an equation for K in terms of P. So it looks like P is the solid lined graph and K is the dotted line graph. And you can see based on the picture, it's clearly a vertical stretch, which means that our outputs, our Y values, are being multiplied by some constant. Okay. So to figure out that constant, I decided to look at the high points right here. So the high point of P is at y equals 2, and the high point of K is at y equals 6. So to go from 2 to 6, that would be multiplying by 3. Okay? And then down here, going from -2 to -6 would also be multiplying by 3. So this is a vertical stretch. It's a vertical stretch by a factor of 3. Okay, remember from the previous lesson notes, when we're doing vertical stretches and squashes, we don't need to do the opposites. Okay, so we don't do the opposite and it goes outside. So to write my equation for K, it's going to be K of X equals P of X. And I'm going to do multiplying by 3 because I don't need to do the opposite. And it's going to go outside the parentheses. So it would be K of X equals P of X times 3. You could also write it like this. K of X equals 3 times P of X. Okay, with multiplication, it doesn't matter the order you put things in. Either one would be considered correct. So that's their answer to number 1. Write an equation for K in terms of P. Okay. Number 2, on the same set of axes, graph the function m, where m of x equals p of 0.75x. So m of x equals p of 0.75x. So this, the multiplication is on the inside, which means this is going to be a horizontal. This is going to be a horizontal stretch or squash. The number that's being multiplied on the inside is 0.75. We know that 0.75 is equivalent to 3/4. Okay. So if we look back at our lesson notes on horizontal ones, okay, on horizontal ones, we have to do the opposites. Okay. So the number that was inside the parentheses was 0.75. 0.75 is less than 1. Okay. So less than 1, when that constant is less than 1, that means it's a horizontal stretch. So first things first, this is a horizontal stretch based on the lesson notes. And to figure out the factor, again, with horizontal stretches and squashes, we have to do the opposite. So what is the opposite of multiplying by 3/4? The opposite of multiplying by 3/4 is actually multiplying by 4/3. Okay? So the opposite of multiplying by 3/4 is multiplying by 4/3. So this is a horizontal stretch by a factor of 4/3, which means I need to take all the inputs of P, so multiply all inputs of P by 4/3. Inputs, remember, are X values. So Y values stay the same. Y values stay the same. But we're going to multiply all of the X values by 4/3. So for example, in this leftmost point here in P, okay, I'm going to keep the Y value at -1, but my X value is -3. So I'm going to multiply -3 times 4/3. So I'm going to multiply -3 times 4/3, and I get -4. So my X value of the new function is going to be -4, and my Y value is going to stay at -1. Okay. So right here, this point right here, my X value is -1. So now I need to multiply that by 4/3. So now I'm going to do -1 times 4/3. Okay, so that's going to be approximately -1.3. So -1.3 is like right here, right? This is -1. Okay, this is -1, this is -2, -1.3, somewhere in the middle. And we keep the Y value the same. So there's that one right there. Okay. Okay, this one's going to stay the same. Okay, the 0 point is going to stay the same because 4/3 times 0 is 0. Okay, this high point here is at X equals 1. So now I'm going to multiply 1 times 4/3. So 1 times 4/3 is 4/3, or 1.3 repeating. So this one is going to be at 1.3 repeating, which is like right here. So that's going to go through there. Okay. And then this last point right here is at X equals 4. So X equals 4. So I'm going to multiply 4 times 4/3. And that's going to be 5.3 repeating. So 5.3 repeating is like right here. So that's going to connect right there. Okay. So that blue graph that I just drew is the new graph for P of 0.75x. Again, because it was a horizontal stretch, okay, I had to do the opposite, which means multiplying all of the inputs by 4/3. Okay. So let's go to number 3 now. Okay. So number 3, the highest point on the graph of P is 1, 2. So that's this point right here. Okay. What is the highest point on the graph of a function n where n of x, so n of x equals P of 5x? Okay. So now the number that's inside is 5. All right. So it's a horizontal one. 5 is obviously greater than 1. So greater than 1. So that's a horizontal squash. So this is going to be a horizontal squash this time. Okay. And then to figure out the factor, because it's horizontal, I have to do the opposites. So what's the opposite of multiplying by 5? The opposite of multiplying by 5 is multiplying by 1/5. So this is a horizontal squash by a factor of 1/5, which means I have to multiply the inputs of P by 1/5. So if my high point is 1 comma 2, I need to take the x value of that point, which is 1, and I need to multiply that by 1/5. So the new x value is going to be 1/5. Okay, the new x value is going to be 1/5, and the y value is going to stay at 2. Okay, so what is the highest point on the graph of a function n where n of x equals p of 5x? The answer is 1/5, comma 2. Okay. The farthest point to the right on the graph of p is 4, comma 0. 4, comma 0. Okay. If the farthest point to the right on the graph of a function q is 18, comma 0, so 18 is somewhere over here. Okay. So if my farthest point is going from x equals 4 to x equals 18, that's going to be a horizontal stretch again. So for number 4, this is a horizontal stretch. Okay. So the question is, what do I multiply 4 by? 4 times what is equal to 18? Okay. 4 times what is equal to 18? Okay. Well, if I have to divide by 4 here, I'm gonna get that what is going to be equal to 18/4. Okay. But because it's a horizontal stretch, I have to do the opposite. So if 4 times 18/4 is equal to 18, this is going to be a horizontal stretch by a factor of, okay, 18/4. Okay, 18/4 is equal to, the opposite of 18/4 is going to be 4/18. Okay, so the opposite of 18/4, so this is a horizontal stretch by a factor of 18/4. Okay, so, or by, excuse me, by a factor of 4/18. So when we write this, okay, this is going to be equal, what was it, q, so it's going to be q of x equals p of 4/18 x. Okay, so it's going to be p of 4/18 x. So we figured out to go from 4 to 18, we had to multiply by 18/4. Because it's a horizontal stretch, I have to write it like the opposite on the inside. So the opposite of 18/4 is 4/18. 4/18. So q of x is equal to p of 4/18 times x. So write a possible equation for q in terms of p. This is my equation right here. Okay, so that is it for my examples, and that is it for this lesson.